Today I'm talking about 3 things that Aaron Rodgers can absolutely not fix on this Jets team. These things fall solely on the shoulders of Joe Douglas. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of JetCast. As always, I'm your host, Pat. You know, once Rodgers went down, there was really nobody that could cover up the flaws of the offense. I really don't want to give Nathaniel Hackett a pass, but at this point, I feel like we have to, based on the amount of injuries that occurred, not only to Aaron Rodgers, but in the offense as a whole. People inside and outside the building all agree that this offense is tailor-made for Aaron Rodgers, and without him there, it simply doesn't work. The minor intricacies, the pre-snap movements, the call changes at the line, they all go through him, and we've talked about this before. And the fact is that whoever they brought in to back him up, Zach Wilson, Trevor Siemian, Tim Boyle, were not able to replicate that. I know that Rodgers swears by Hackett, and he sees him as a top-notch offensive coordinator, but in my opinion, Hackett is not a great play caller. I think the play calls actually run through Aaron Rodgers, and we saw that in a Rich Cimini article that came out recently where the last 3 practices of the season, usually on a team that's not making the playoffs, are kind of lame duck practices, but in these practices, Aaron called his own plays at the line. It was the offensive ones versus the defensive ones, and Aaron, from all accounts, really tore up the defense, calling his own plays, calling his own personnel. From what I'm hearing, seems to be a preview of 2024. But like I said, there are certain things that no matter how good Aaron is, he's not going to be able to fix on the offense. First and foremost, and it's pretty obvious to everybody at this point, it's the offensive line. I know that Rodgers can adjust coverages. I know that he can shift coverages better than most. But the fact is, he would have been eaten alive by this offensive line if he was able to play the entire season. Instead of getting hurt 4 plays in, he would have gotten hurt significantly further down the line, week 9, week 10, something like that. And I don't think I am pulling that out of thin air. The amount of injuries on the offensive line, I lost count of how many different combinations of starting offensive line that we had, but I'm pretty sure it was the most in the NFL. Joe Douglas has got to invest significant capital into the offensive line, or there's zero chance that Aaron Rodgers can stay healthy for the whole 2024 season. A 41-year-old quarterback needs a wall in front of him that he can trust. I do think there's 2 big splashes, one through the draft with that number 10 pick, and another one is got to come through free agency. I hope that Joe Alt or Olu from Penn State can fall to pick 10. I think it's possible based on the teams in front of us, based on the needs of the teams in front of us. I think we're looking at 3 to 4 quarterbacks going. I think we're looking at 3 to 4 wide receivers possibly even going, which means one of these guys may fall to us. And if he doesn't, if the one of those 2 don't, I can see them trading back, getting some more picks, and picking up a tackle later on in the first round. In free agency, we have a few guys that I think are going to shake loose. You know, they should have never let Morgan Moses walk in free agency. They're bringing back Keith Carter, which some Jet fans believe he is the reason for all the offensive line issues. But I think he gets a pass with all the injuries that occurred and just the players that he was given to work with. You know, Dwayne Brown goes down week 2, I think it was. AVT goes down in the Denver game. You're moving Mekhi Becton around all over the place, which Mekhi Becton, I think they're going to let him walk because I don't think he is the future left tackle of this team. But it has to be a priority. Durability is the most important thing. Your most important asset is availability, especially on the offensive line. And as good as Aaron Rodgers is, he can't fix the offensive line. Number 2 is having a competent backup quarterback. I've already talked about the flaws that exposed Rodgers when he went down on the offensive line, and if he goes down again in 2024, we need a veteran quarterback that's not only going to be able to execute the offense, but execute it confidently. Zach Wilson should have never played. They should have gone out and gotten a veteran when Aaron went down, and they didn't. And they've admitted that was a mistake in their press conferences. Joe Douglas cannot make the same mistake again. He has got to learn from these mistakes, especially this one. Go out, go get Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, anybody. It cannot be. It's not going to be Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's going to be traded. We've known that for weeks now. He's not going to be on this team next year. And it better not be a year one rookie quarterback that they draft. If they draft a quarterback, which I could see them doing later in the rounds, he's got to be the third quarterback, but they got to get a veteran in here. We cannot put all of our eggs in the Aaron Rodgers basket. I hope we never see the backup quarterback play. I hope Aaron Rodgers plays a full 2024 season. I hope we go to the playoffs and, roll the dice there. But if something happens, we cannot let the entire season just go off the rails. I'm confident that they'll get somebody because their job's on the line. They understand, they have to understand that if they don't make the playoffs this year, everyone's going to get fired. So why wouldn't you get that insurance policy of getting a veteran quarterback in the building? And finally, the last thing that Aaron Rodgers cannot fix is that there's no wide receiver depth outside of Garrett Wilson. It doesn't matter if you have a Hall of Fame quarterback. If there's nobody to catch the ball, then there's no point in having him. Outside of Garrett Wilson, guys were struggling. Xavier Gibson is a great story, but he's a wide receiver 3 to 4 at best, and Allen Lazard just checked out halfway through the season. I hope that changes once Aaron comes back, because apparently him and Aaron have a really close relationship, and he clearly knew that Zach Wilson was not going to be the answer. And we saw videos of him playing with a soccer ball at practice. Let's get real. I hope to God Mike Evans shakes loose in Tampa. It probably won't happen, but if it does, you get him in here and you pay him whatever he wants. Garrett Wilson may end up being wide receiver 2 at that point if you bring in Mike Evans, but that's a pipe dream. But again, it's a failure on Joe Douglas to bring in somebody. Right? We went into training camp with Corey Davis and Mecole Hardman. And I was at training camp. Mecole Hardman was getting first-team reps. He had a great relationship with Aaron Rodgers. It was actually looking really nice for Mecole Hardman. It fell apart because Aaron Rodgers got hurt and the playbook got dumbed down. And when Corey Davis decided to retire out of the blue, they did nothing. We were putting Breece Hall split out wide for the last 3 games, for the last 3 weeks of the season. And Breece Hall's amazing. I love Breece Hall. I think he's going to be our back for the next decade if he stays healthy. I think Breece Hall is going to be an all-time great Jet, from my opinion. But he's a running back. He can't be split out wide on 40% of the offensive snaps. We need more wide receiver help. It's on Joe Douglas. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you have Aaron Rodgers on the team. If there's nobody to catch the ball, it doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers returning in 2024 brings back a lot of stability and brings back a well-respected leader in the locker room that guys listen to. And I know Rodgers was back as a strange kind of player-coach hybrid role, but that is so much different than him being a starting quarterback. I expect Rodgers to be back fully healthy in 2024. I think we're going to see a much more disciplined team because of his presence. And he's gonna do things like he's not gonna tolerate drops. He's not gonna tolerate stupid penalties. He's not gonna tolerate wrong routes being run. He'll chew guys out. He chewed guys out at training camp. I saw it. There was no one on the team that would call out players, not even the head coach, when they would mess up. Aaron Rodgers was that guy, and he can fix a lot of things on this offense. But there are certain things that, like I said, fall on Joe Douglas's shoulders. We're not going to be competitive for the next 2 years with Aaron Rodgers unless the foundation of that offensive line is changed, a backup quarterback is brought in, and we get wide receiver help. I've said it on Twitter. I've said it in other videos. I think this team is completely different with an offensive line you can trust, not even a full offensive line you can trust, a left tackle that you can trust, and a wide receiver 2 with sure hands. I think we win maybe 1 or 2 more games. A lot of fans think that we are so far away from being competitive, And they clown Saleh going up to the podium and saying, we're not that far off. And they clown Joe Douglas for saying the same thing at his press conferences. I don't think we're that far off. Teams don't need multiple years to bounce back. It's been shown that teams that have been in the dumps for years can turn it around quickly. Joe Douglas has tried turning it around quickly, but the offensive line in particular has failed not only him, has failed the offense, has failed the fans. And if we can get these fundamental pieces fixed, I think 2024 and 2025 with Aaron Rodgers are going to be a lot of fun to watch.